Okay, so right now I'm going to show you some of my resources that I'm using for my YouTube project. So basically the 3 points I'm trying to cover is like YouTube's history, kind of defining like what YouTube was, how YouTubers originated, and where it's come over the past 10 years. Outlining a little bit on the industry, where how YouTube has really taken music and where it's going to go from here, and YouTube and education. Um, Particularly, I think I talked about in my last video how I could not find how it related to music education, but in like some of my videos, which I actually found some articles that pertain to music education in YouTube, which is good. So I can use some of that here, but I also am going to focus like on the main points of YouTube and education and like where it stands now, how it's evolutionized education, and where it's going to take education from here. So, with talking about that, this is my first source that I found. It's kind of like a timeline of YouTube. As you can see, I have that up top here. And when you keep scrolling through, I'm scrolling through on my little thing. It kind of talks about how YouTube is incorporated, where YouTube came from, kind of when it launched, giving us real information of like YouTube's history, which is actually I found this pretty cool when I found this source because I was like, wow, this really helps convey that timeline and being like, okay, so YouTube started on this date, and from here, this is where it's gone, and who they've teamed up with, and what they've done since then. And as you can see, as I'm scrolling through, it's very ideal information. The next article I found is a decade later, YouTube remains a mystery, especially to itself. So as we can tell, YouTube is still complicated in its 10 years that it's been in. I mean, it's not so complicated. It's very easy as downloading a video and having people watch it. But obviously there's things that we don't know. So in reading this article, it talks about like, again, it's like the history of YouTube, but it's talking more about maybe some of the stuff that has happened throughout its time, which is cool, and every year that it's been out, which I think it's great, you know, talking its importance. All right. The next video, I believe, I don't, yeah. The next one is from Business Insider, so it's 22 key turning points in the history of YouTube, which I think is great also because it, you know, in focusing on its history, I can also point out like the 10 like important turning points for YouTube itself, which I think it's great to add that as well because it's a really an important feature to understand and know, like, where, like, oh, it started in 2005, but this particular artist made it more important. And like, let's say like, like stuff like that. So it's really like, it's very important to have this also. The role of YouTube, now this is going into like the music industry and YouTube. So the role of YouTube in the music industry, which I believe I had said in my previous one, I couldn't find a lot of videos pertaining to it, but I did find a lot of articles. So I'll be able to give more information. Which this kind of talks about, where the music now is basically at the matter of our fingertips, where like we can go to YouTube and we can search for how to, or for music, we can literally type in our favorite song and the music video will come up, or somebody's cover will come up, and then it leads you to either iTunes or Spotify or something where you literally can stream or buy the song. And that's, so YouTube is kind of like that key link to getting to the next step, which is interesting on its own. So, but what does that lead us to? Digital streaming, which is our future. So this was a really very interesting article, and it also talks about like where the record labels stand now, because it's difficult. If you have an art, you have your independent artist versus your labeled artist, and right now your independent artists are rocking the world as they're streaming, and they're getting all these views and these likes, and they're the ones that are really like being the hits, and it's making your labels, the artists that are under record contracts, it's making it difficult for them, because they're trying to get that sale and they can't. But it does give them exposure as well, but it's a little bit of a hard figure. So it's a really interesting uh standpoint that I want to point out, which is why I think YouTube is important. At first I think it's great, but now I think it's also hurting them as well. And I'll give you guys one more. This is another the influence of YouTube with music. That's not coming up. These are not coming up. Sorry. Crap. Hold on a second. Okay. Well, this is not what I wanted to show you, but okay. So I'll highlight one more source: using music education in the classroom. Yay. Again, something where I couldn't find YouTube videos too, but I did find a couple articles, not including the one that I'm Xing out right now, because now I'm going to have to go find another one. That was really weird. I apologize for that. But this talks about how even though YouTube is growing, it's growing and helping, kind of giving a helping hand to music education, because we have a lot of things on YouTube, whether we're like learning how to play an instrument, listening to a piece of music, all these different things. Like, YouTube is more of a resource for musicians and for music educators, where we can show our students, like, the different world music cultures that are out there that, maybe we can't experience in the classroom, but our students can see it in a video, which is kind of, I think it really brings that effect in the classroom. And it's really like how you can use it, and and it's a listening tool and recording and evaluation, and we even create our own stuff, and we can post performances of our students and put it on the web for everyone to see. Like, for example, you play Eric Whitacre's October. It's a beautiful piece, and it's been sung before, and now you get the opportunity to share it with the world, and share the link. My students played this piece for their spring concert. Come check it out. And then meanwhile, you get like 700 hits later and all that. So I think, I think this is great, and it's all the ways that we can use it in the classroom, which I think is really effective when it comes to talking about YouTube and music education and combining them as a whole. Other than that, I showed you a couple of resources. I didn't show you everything, but I showed you a few, so hopefully this gives everyone something to look forward to. Suggestions are always welcome. Thank you.